Hey there, this is Just Bet Reviews. We're doing a review comparing the Combat MAXUM and the Easton Mako. This may be the most asked review ever in the history of the world. These two bats are pretty fantastic. They are also pretty fundamentally different. We have a pretty long article written up on our on the blog, sort of going into detail on these two bats. But let me walk you through maybe a couple details. Those folks who don't necessarily want to read it. Unfortunately, here today we only have a 32-inch Mako and a 31-inch Combat MAXUM, but that's going to give you still going to give you a feel for what it looks like. We'll first look at barrel size. The best way to do this, if you look over here at the Combat, notice that it comes in, right about the O for Combat. Realizing that these are, one's an inch shorter. The Combat is. This will still give you an idea of what it looks like. Those barrels are almost exactly equal, meaning that they get to their 2 5/8 size. Excuse me, they get to their 2 5/8 size almost the same exact time, although Combat's giving up an inch by way of total length. I think that's probably a fair way to say that the Combat barrel gets to its maximum length sooner than the Easton Mako. Now remember, we're talking about maybe an inch to a half an inch before. What does that mean when it comes to hitting success? Virtually nothing, if anything at all. But it's always fun to compare those sizes. The Combat MAXUM bat is clearly the largest barrel on the market, at least in the senior barrel space. When you get to the BB core sizes, not necessarily the case for the Combat MAXUM, but for the senior barrel sizes, so the 2 5/8, the 2 3/4, the big barrels as they call them, the Combat MAXUM is the biggest, and it's usually about an inch, with the Mako being real close second, and another one called the Dirty South, which is really close in there as well. So, okay, so there's barrel size. The other thing to notice the knobs are the same, so there's no flared knob on either of these. This is the Mako XL drop 8. This is the Combat drop 10. Something to sort of pay attention to when you're trying to really discover the differences between these two bats. If you're looking for a light swinging bat in a given weight, then the Combat is always that in every drop that it has. So in its senior league version, for example, the Combat, that's the bat on the right, the white one, right? It comes in a drop 12, a drop 10, a drop 8, and a drop 5. And every one of those bats in the Combat, every one of the Combat bats, their balance point is down here. They feel like they put the balance point here. Even if you get a drop 5 or a drop 8, their balance point is down here more on the bat. It is a light swinging bat. The Mako is a little bit of a different story. So the Mako comes in different versions. They don't make a Mako drop 8 or drop 5. What they make is a Mako XL. So the Mako XL is built a little different, and this is the drop 8 Mako XL. They actually put the balance point further down here. So the Mako XL and the Mako are actually different sort of versions of the same bat, but they literally change where the balance point is. And that somewhat happens on the drop 5 and drop 8 Combat, but just know that they actually call these different bats. And so the point of that is, if you're looking for a real heavy bat, a heavy swing-weighted bat, where you can feel the balance point more towards the end cap, then the Combat MAXUM is not going to be for you. You're going to want to get a Mako XL, if you want a two-piece composite, a Mako XL in a drop 5 or a drop 8. If you want a drop 5 or a drop 8 in the senior league version that has the weight more towards the middle of the bat, where it's sort of that balance feel, then there is no Mako option. Because the Mako XL drop 8 and drop 5, there is no Mako drop 5 or drop 8. It's only a Mako XL. So you got to go for the Combat. So those are some fundamental differences on sizing. So that may help you decide which one you want, simply because it has the right size. But most people who are in that drop, drop 10, drop 12, a 30 drop, like this orange one, or the white and orange, that's a 30-20, or excuse me, a 31-21. That sort of bat. The Mako drop 10, very similar bats, with the exception, obviously, of the Mako, the Combat having a little bit bigger barrel. And the big piece here is that you have a two-piece bat versus a one-piece bat. So the Mako has this connection technology. This bat, it's actually two composites, a composite handle and composite barrel, and they're sort of welded together, if you will, with this insert. this connection technology. The Combat is a single-piece bat. You can read the blog, and we have a few blog posts about the differences of, do you choose a one-piece bat or a two-piece bat? But ultimately, the decision's going to come down to which one you like better. The Combat will have more feedback in your hands on mishits, meaning sting. You're going to feel it more when you don't hit it right. You're going to feel that more in the Combat than you will in the Mako. The Mako's smooth on a lot of hits. It seems to always feel like you hit the ball well with the Mako, which again, some people like because it doesn't hurt your hands as much, can give you more confidence at the plate, make maybe a younger player swing harder because they're not scared of their hands are going to sting. But at the same time, giving feedback that's not necessarily honest feedback to the player, that might not be the best route. Some people sort of like that feel of, oh, I didn't hit it right, I can feel it. In addition to that, at least in theory, a single-piece bat can hit a ball further because all that energy is pushed into the baseball or into the hands, whereas when you have a two-piece bat, you have energy that can go into the hands. It can go into that two-piece, that connective technology, that absorbing, vibration piece, as well as into the ball, and that's just simple physics there. That's not, that's theory. That's not in practice and lab. And I know the people who work for Mako or for Easton and for DeMarini and all the two-piece bat lovers will say, oh, no, it's the same because the transition's really stiff. Well, and I would say, well, if the transition's really stiff, then just make a one-piece bat. Why go through the trouble of making a two-piece bat? Because, again, it absorbs some of that sting. And absorbing the sting is good, except for it's absorbing the sting and not delivering it to the baseball. So again, in a vacuum, a one-piece bat can hit the ball further. That's a very long conversation. You could read a bunch of papers on it, white papers, and all types of fun things. But ultimately, that's the difference. You got to decide: do I want a one-piece or a two-piece bat? And if I want a two-piece, am I okay with the right size and the whole XL conversation versus the sort of the low drop yet end-loaded versus versus balance? Does that fit? And then, with the Combat, you're going to get a little more barrel size. You're also going to pay a little more money, too. I think right now the Combat is $50 more, at least MSRP. Outside of that, maybe the other thing to point out is the Combat comes with a custom lizard skin grip. Not custom, a stock. So they put lizard skin grip on there. You can tell we've used it a lot. You can always change it out. Easton comes with their own, torque tack grip or whatever they're calling it, or tack grip now. It's a nice grip. I like lizard skins better, but that's $10 to change out if you want a different one. You just buy a lizard skin online and put it on there. Knobs are almost exactly the same. There you go. They're both good bats. No one's going to be disappointed, I think, with either one. I think the only potential to be disappointed would be if you're a younger and newer player and you're just learning how to hit well, and you got a single piece composite bat like the Combat MAXUM, and you miss hit a couple times, you'd start to hate baseball because it really there's a ring in your hands to it. But if you've been hitting for a while and you have more experience and you kind of know what it should feel like, I think you'll appreciate the bigger hits and the better sort of feel on contact when you hit the ball right with the MAXUM. That's my general thoughts from someone who's seen hundreds of kids hit, and we've tried out hundreds and hundreds of bats. But these two bats are great. Hard to argue that either one's really a bad choice. So, all right, there you go. That is the Combat MAXUM versus the Easton, and we'll write a ton more on the site, and you guys can check it out at Just Bat Reviews.